All right, guys, what's going on? Grab a pen and jot this down. This week, I am talking about Gemini IO. I was invited to IO 2026 last week in California, obviously in Mountain View at the Google Amphitheater. It was a beautiful event. It was magnificent in terms of networking, meeting people, meeting the team, product team, engineering, research, and then getting to meet all the creators. So Google I/O does some really cool things. One, this is primarily Gemini focused. It's the ecosystem I live in. So I look at the entire vertical stack of Gemini because I think Google Alphabet dominates that stack in terms of AI. That's from the consumer web app, which Gemini, AI mode, AI search, everybody's kind of familiar with, down to the developer tools like AI Studio, Anti Gravity, their API keys. They have multiple search lab products that are really cool, like Flow, Whisk, etc. And we'll talk about Google Gemini Omni. Uh, they have a tremendous level of hardware, so with TPUs that I've mentioned before. Obviously, the Android, now the Google Book that's releasing soon, and they're talking about Google Glass, and then the last piece is the cloud infrastructure. So obviously, Google Cloud. I went to go check out the new Gemini enterprise products and how to use Gemini CLI, anti-gravity CLI. Those are more coding and developer-based tools like Kubernetes and database and Firebase and Firestore. Those are all database-related products, developer-related products. So full stack. Whether you like Gemini, whether you like Google, whether you not, it doesn't matter. They own the full stack. So I think that's a competitive advantage. I love it for many reasons. Really love it because of the context window. I love the multimodal models. I will talk about all of that today. So first up, they released a couple products. I will mention a few of them that are publicly known. So obviously, I would recommend checking out Gemini Spark whenever it releases because they mentioned it several times, and it looks like it is an open claw kind of competitor. We've seen a couple of agentic tools like this. The Gemini and Chrome, which I don't think enough people are familiar with, has some capabilities, which because it could read your taskbar, which is really cool, or tabs. I don't think people enough use it. Obviously, Perplexity has something with Perplexity Computer. Claude has something with Claude Cowork. I think Gemini will have the best potential because they own the Chrome browser, Chrome OS, and they have some developer tools. They released something that I haven't looked into. I think it's like modern web guidance or something like that. Design so you could build apps or you can use Gemini to read the dev tool interfaces within the Chrome browser. I think it has potential. I don't know what the level of like the capacity is. I've built Chrome extensions. I just don't know what's. I got this shirt by the way at Google I/O. It says "Build, ship, and repeat," and I think that's awesome. I don't know what the potential is. I think the Gemini and Chrome has a lot of potential. I would love to see it to become more agentic overall. Maybe Spark will do that. I have no idea. I was more interested in one Gemini Omni, which is now their new video model. I know that Gemini has the best image video processing model. I think they have the most compute to do this. So what's really interesting is that they can do before with Nano and Nano 2, they could actually just like you could replace images, type in a prompt, replace images or edit them, and it became very good at like real time editing. You don't need to have Photoshop or anything. I use it all the time, especially to create memes or like to create new images. It's very good, like thumbnails. The Gemini Omni is very cool because you can now do the same feature set in video mode. So you could be having this background, you could be on the ocean, or you could be flying in space, and you could do the video. Demis, who's the founder and CEO of DeepMind, at Gemini had this cool video where he like pressed the screen or the mirror, and it like changed the entire reflection and like his appearance. It was very like I imagine it's very hard to pull off a video model like that. I've used it; it's good. I think there's like a credit limit to it, so I don't know the accessibility to everybody. I do think you have to start. They've changed the pricing models for Pro and Ultra, and I imagine it's very expensive to run this. So it's not so like I think I've done it. I think it can only do like 10 seconds. It consumed a lot of credits. Not a problem. I'm not a video guy, but I think it's very cool to use products like that. I think it has. I think the API token costs that are going to be most expensive are going to be related to video games and movies in the future. I think it's going to outpace what software development, what we can see in software development today. The agentic features from Claude Code and Gemini and Anti Gravity and Codex, I think they'll be tiny compared when we start making like video generation, movie generation on demand. So Gemini Omni, very cool. I think that's like the number one recommendation. Uh, if you have like Search Lab or you can access it, I think it's very amazing. Um, Obviously, they are releasing. They showed some videos about YouTube search. They're going to upgrade that, which I think Ask Gemini and YouTube search is an amazing product already. I save so much time. I don't have to watch the entire videos. I don't even recommend watching these videos that I do myself if you don't want to. But Ask Gemini YouTube, you can just like ask for a transcript or a summary, go to specific questions or go to a specific part of the video. It's amazing. I think the biggest releases for me from Google I/O related to anti-gravity, which they approved the entire interface. Tremendous amount of complaints from developers related to the IDE getting split or being lost or can't be found. I didn't have a problem. I'm not really a developer. I just love to use the tool. I think it's amazing. AI Studio is awesome. It has this gigantic context window. I recommend it to a lot of people. In the last 2.5 months, they've really focused on their like vibe coding tool, so you could develop and prototype these apps, which are pretty good. But now, after last week, they released a feature where you could do it and deploy it on Google Cloud Run, and you could have a domain or an URL, and you could actually publish the app live, which was hard before. And then you can connect it directly to Firebase or Firestore. And Firebase, those are database products. So like you could like upload documents, you can upload authentications and etc. You can build a really good functional app, like a low budget production app, and then before you push it off to a developer, you could have a very functional app for almost free, because now like it's either you pay the monthly subscription, and you could probably do something for $100 a month, but you really want to have an API, which is still pretty cheap for most app development, unless you're doing like video related consumption production. Input output tokens are relatively affordable for most people. The best feature that I haven't tested yet is that now AI Studio has the ability to create Android apps and deploy it to the Play Store, Google Play Store. And in the first week, they said they got 250,000 Android apps developed. I think that's amazing. I think that was like a barrier for a lot of people that want to build mobile apps, myself included. Like I've never done it. I want to do it. I still don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to do it, but I think it's an amazing product feature release that just gives anybody and everybody a capacity to get in and to just develop an app. Web apps obviously are great. Building websites or an application of software behind the website is amazing. But building a mobile app, I think that just reduces the barrier for anybody. Mostly businesses. I think it's very accessible for small businesses, or at least medium-sized businesses or departments that need this the most, or consumers that want to build like cool apps, whether they want to use it themselves or they want to share it with friends, or they want to do something that probably would have cost $5,000 to $25,000 to build a prototype. And then you would have to do multiple iterations, which would cost thousands of dollars per each iteration. And you don't know if the developer is good or not, but now you could save $30,000 and then have some version of V0 or V1.0, and then go out and say, all right, this is a prototype. You could put obviously, I don't know if, I imagine AI Studio has a Stripe capability, so you could probably accept payments or you could integrate it. I've seen it. I've seen the integrations, but I imagine you could do it. It's pretty simple. Stripe's amazing for this. So you can accept payment. So you can build an app, you could sell it, have it on the store. I don't know if they'll release it on iOS yet, but they mentioned obviously there's demand for it. But I think that's like a significant, like the AI Studio, the APIs are where I think the future of AI is going, in terms of like this like developer consumption is going to be higher than like the $100, $200 a month plans. So people are going to figure out how to build applications. They're going to use tools like AI Studio, Replit, V0, Vercel's V0, and etc. And beyond that, I think I think these tools, like these AI models, are simply just going to get more intelligent. I think one of the biggest takeaways I was trying to figure out how these companies, particularly Gemini, Google in this case, is how they have 900 million users, particularly in AI mode, AI search. It's it's hard to fathom how many people are using these products, but it's even more difficult to understand because they were saying, I think Josh Woodward, the guy who runs some of their product lab, search lab division, that a 1 year roadmap doesn't exist, a 90-day roadmap barely exists, and they're basically focused so much on intelligence. Like, even if they get feedback into the system, it's all good and great, so they can figure out the paper cuts in different products and problems. But they're just focused on pushing. So they obviously released. They had Gemini 3.1 Pro, and they released 3.5 Flash, and it's cheaper, it's faster, it's effective at doing a lot of things, particularly like coding and writing and thinking. And they're going to release 3.5 Pro, they said, in a few weeks, so let's just say June. They're just so focused on increasing the level of intelligence, it would just solve all the other problems. So they're not even thinking really about, hey, we need to develop this new feature all the time. They're just like, how can we make the AI model smarter so they can figure out how like harness it and how to deliver it on the product on the consumer end or the user end. And it's solving, and it's not just Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, and now XAI, SpaceX. XAI SpaceX delivered Grok Build, which is like another developer tool. When they're developing these products, they're basically figuring out how to make AI smarter, and it's solving all these products, which is kind of interesting because I've always been in the school of thought that you have to get vertical intelligence, vertical specialty. It is very important for that application, but general intelligence is like winning across all the spectrums. So it's really significant across all models. I don't, particularly for me, I don't see a difference in any of these models. I'm sure in the edge cases or like really, really close to the edge, like the top 1%, in particular fields like coding, you do need to be attentive to which are the best. But I think these models are so close, like there's only a 3-month gap in terms of like the leadership board. I think I heard Gavin Baker say that 3.1 Pro in like November release was on the like the Pareto scale or whatever the word he was using, the principle or like the edge of like fastest, best, and lowest cost. And they lost that in the last few months. And I think Google will just come back into leadership when the next model releases, upgrades come out. But it's like, back and forth all the time. I hear that people are having trouble with Claude Code because they're hitting token limits because they've hit demand. Like they have demand, like the constraint on demand is because of compute constraints. And so they have to reduce everybody's usage, or they have to limit it, or provide or deliver lower models that aren't as intelligent, which is a problem. People can notice, they can figure it out. So they switch back to Codex. And I haven't had those constraints or limitations on Gemini because I think they just have so much more capacity. But I'm also not a superpower user, which I think, any power user I speak to anyway, they're like, we use Flash for X, Y, and Z, like legal documents, video consumption, etc. So everybody uses Gemini in some capacity, but they just find Codex and Claude Code better for coding. But I find Gemini to be better in everything. And I recommend checking out I particularly recommend checking out the web app tool, which has more features that they've upgraded. It has a beautiful interface now, and it's just getting better. But I do recommend checking out AI Studio for their new development if you want to build apps or you want to at least learn how to do it. And then I think there's a lot more that will be released later in the year. But I think if you're using any of these models, Gemini has released so many products that it's worth at least testing, particularly if you're in the video space. Gemini Omni is probably the one you're going to have the most fun with. So check it out. Give me your feedback. Let me know what you're using. And then build it, ship, and repeat.